YOLO, welcome to my journey. Today gonna do some SEM. I'm gonna finish the journal.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? How you been? Thank you.
Yes.
I'm good. Good. Okay, I'm very happy to see everyone here today, and let's start our week 4 with very exciting, learning very exciting technologies. One of the best and the hottest technologies of the front end now today. And in this technology, you learn lots of modern, good, design in the front end development. And this can form a foundation for you, a solid foundation for you in the future as a front end developer. If you started, as a developer or as an IT student 10 years ago, you probably don't have to, learn all these complicated stuff. However, times is going, and technology is always evolve into more and more complicated stuff, and you probably have to deal with it and have to learn with it. So, welcome to week 4 with the React.js, which is one of the core technologies we will learn in this course. And this is the slides for week 4 React.js. Even though today we have a lecture, however, let me just copy and share with you this one. Even though this is just a lecture, however, I will show you some demo as well, and I also invited you to collaborate with me, cooperate with me in doing so. Because if you just listen and listen, you may not appreciate or you may not really touch into the essence of the technology. Okay? So, welcome to React.js. There will be a numbers of topics, there are numbers of things we need to discuss. I hope you have time to cover all of them. Of course, I will not go into the details of each slide, but most importantly, I'll just focus on the core, the essence of that. So what is React.js? We have these questions again and again in every React tutorial and every introductory lecture to React.js. So basically, React.js is a JavaScript library or framework, right? Many people call it as a library instead of framework. I remember last few years ago when we have a guest lecture on React.js, and the lecturer, the guest lecturer say, React is a library, it's not a framework, because you have to build everything again, by yourself, not by the React. React just give you the some tool, some function to to help you to create your applications. But majority of tasks must be done by yourself. That's why they call it a library versus a framework. Okay, and React.js is built by Facebook. So Facebook is a company everyone knows, right? Their main business is social networking or advertisement. However, they have built lots of software, and because they are not a software development company, so they are willing to share that with community, right? And that's the good, right? Most of the things on computer science are free and open source. So why we have to use React? Can all the JavaScript technology we used before be good enough for building an app? Probably not yet, right? That's why people desire to have some new and modern technologies, a library that can help to build front-end applications easier. So what are the benefits that offered by React.js? That people have to spend lots of time, right? Lots of effort to learn. If it doesn't bring any benefits or really clear, right? Clear or obvious good things or advantage, then we probably don't need it, right? So what is the benefits that React.js can bring to us? Maybe the numbers. Well, I took them from the React.js website. You just need to Google for it, and you can get the numbers of information about that. But basically, it can be summarized in a three: declarative, component based, and learn once, write anywhere. I will explain one by one. Declarative means you can build a UI by just declare it, right? It's as a writing, individual control in a form, right? And then bind them into an event. We can, do it by just declare it, once you already have it or someone already designed for you, you just need to declare it, right? Secondly is the component based. HTML is good. HTML5 has been used by almost anyone. They offer lots of interesting, granular, components where you can form any kind of website. However, sometimes you want to reuse the form. You want to reuse some sort of logic. Can we make your own HTML tag? No, because HTML, list of tags are controlled by the gangs, the mafia called W3Cs, World Wide Web Consortium. So there's no way to really customize that, right? And if you need some more from it, you probably have to go through the process, right? Request for proposal, and it would take a long time. But with React.js, you can build your own components and reuse it in another project. All right. And finally, learn one, write anywhere. With the knowledge on React.js, you can easily build a mobile app with React Native. Everything is the same. The only difference is you can build the mobile apps. And your mobile app can be run on all platforms. It can run on web, it can run on Android, it can run on iOS. I personally have built many apps on by using React.js, and it's worked perfectly. Right? So there's many benefits. The other benefit is about the performance. Facebook is the company that faced these issues, earlier because of the complexity on their website. Remember, Facebook website is a single-page application. When you go into the landing page, Facebook homepage, you almost stay there permanently, like forever. Seldomly, you have to navigate out of that when you have to do some sort of configurations or setting. But most of the cases, when you go to Facebook, you stay on that page. And because of the single page design, Facebook DOM objects, domain object model become so huge. And sometimes the browser cannot really deal with that because it had to create many components, many items in the DOM tree. Remember, Google Chrome or any kind of web browser are just a software application. It needs the memory to work on, and when they have to load the big website, many things have been stored in the memory. All right, and if there's not a good way to manage the memory, the web page usually goes to crash. They're very easy to crash a web page, especially if big. Remember, The Facebook design allow you to scroll down, right? Read more, scroll down. And this is actually the one of the UX and UI design principle. Instead of giving the user the next and next buttons, give them the scroll down to load more. Now, I would like to ask the web expert in our class why the scroll down to load more is more favorite, compared to the next buttons. You want to go to the next page to show more items. Anyone, please? Where's the web expert? Why read more? Where the scroll down is more referable, right? Compared to next button. I'm sorry that in this call, when you design an app, I always ask you to build a pagination with the next button. But in reality, with the UX UI experts' opinions, they encourage people to use the read, the scroll down instead of next button. Now, in terms of UX, thank you, Tom, for the answer. But in terms of UX and UI experience, I think it's more natural, right? Bo, you want to say something? Wayne, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you from which standpoint are you asking the question, from a UI UX UCD viewpoint or from like the developer side? Because like the rendering is like the same thing, just like yes, like you said, where if you scroll down, it's more natural, and if you press next, it has to change.
Yeah, I'm asking in terms of user, because user is the boss in here. I'm asking on behalf of the user, not the developers. Whatever user needs, developer have to satisfy. No argue. Yeah, okay, I think you're right. Yeah, scrolling down it give more kind of higher usability compared to next button. Because when they go to next, they have to find a button and click, right? Sometimes they click. They're not in the right place. But scrolling down is very natural. They don't need to make any effort, right? So much more friendly. Okay. Yes. So Facebook maybe the first company implement the scroll down, load more with the timeline. Remember, with the timeline status. And if some people have a busy timelines, then they probably load lots of items, on a single page, and it will get crashed easily. So that's why Facebook try to develop a new tool called React.js, and in this tool they implement a concept called virtual DOM. So this is the virtual DOM, and with the virtual DOM, they only update the branch that directly associate with the change. Remember, single page website means you have to constantly update, partial of the website. And given the DOM tree that we have here, if we don't use the virtual DOM, every render on the website require the whole re-rendering of the website. That's one of the weakness of the World Wide Web, of the HTML. Okay, so Facebook realized that this is not good. You update one status, why we have to reload the whole website, which is not really efficient. Facebook invented something called virtual DOM, and this virtual DOM will wait, right? Every rendering that the user requests will be put in a batch and render. So let's say user click many buttons at the same time. Facebook virtual DOM will not render them, will not trigger the change. However, they wait until many actions are accumulated into a batch, then they process it one. So this virtual DOM will really be useful in terms of performance. We have some example here. If you click on that and have a look, you can see how virtual DOM really have to boost the performance. Okay. maybe I don't have time to go into the details here. Okay. Now everyone eager to touch the React.js Hello World. However, before you go, I would like to introduce you a new language. Web programming is a language. There is a course that requires you to know many languages, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript, ES6, right? Now you learn a new language. This language called JSX, JavaScript Extensions. So what is JSX? So JSX is a special language that allow you to work to combine HTML and JavaScript into one. Okay, so maybe I can make a quick note here for your information. JSX is HTML plus JS. Okay. Now the important question is, this is new language, right? How could the web browser understand this new language? Remember, HTML, JavaScript, and CSS are all standards languages approved by W3C, right? And all the web browser company have to implement those standards. But JSX is not belong to W3C standards. How could a web browser run it, understand it, and run it? I ask you that question, and if you know, please answer me. Excellent. We got an excellent answer from Tâm. Kiều Tâm. There will be technological bubble or Babel. Let's call it Babel because the original term refer to a story in Bible. In Bible, according to the Bible, when God created humankind, they soon, come to a conflict. When they try to build a big Babel tower, and they really want to, build a tower that can go to the sky, go to the heaven. So God see that and think that they are too arrogant, right? They want to go to the heaven. So God decided to give them different languages. So they spoke different languages. They couldn't understand each other. And that's, they had to stop building that tower. So Babel, in many sense, means language, right? We have a very famous website to learn language called Babel. You Google for that, you will see the website for language learning. So Babel is a compiler. It will translate the JSX into a normal JavaScript and DOM. And by using a bubble, this very weird syntax can be easily understood by a web browser. Okay. Next. So JSX is very simple. You can embed any JavaScript expressions in the JSX by using curly brace. So this is a curly brace, right? So this is JSX. So if you want to embed, JavaScript code, you use the curly brace. And if you want to embed the HTML, you use the parentheses. Easy to understand? That's for JS and this for HTML. Okay, easy to remember, right? Because later on you will see lots of examples on that. So for example, I will build a component.
So it should be HTML, not HTML in your comments.
Yeah, that's a type of message. Yeah, HTML. Thank you, Brett. All right. So let's say we want to define a React component using JSX. You can easily define a constant with the parentheses. With the parentheses, you embed the HTML. But if you want to render the values from here, you put a curly brace. Okay? That's it. In React, we will have two ways to construct the React kind of project. One will be the elements, one will be the components. Okay. Building block, I say React building block. React building block will be either elements or component. Yeah, I think you can say so. Quite yes, like this. Element or components. They both are the same. The only difference is elements have no JavaScript, but components can have JavaScript. Okay. So this is one example of the component elements where you have HTML, right? HTML tags. Okay. To render the elements, we can use a function called render, and in that you put the components or elements, and here is the div. Every React project will have a root div, right? Root div. Okay, every project will have a root div. For example, in your HTML, you define an element, a div called root, and for whatever React components or element you want to render, just call the React DOM.render. Then React will show this components to this div for you. All right. Next. So this is the React elements and this is the React component. Right? Component let you split the UI into the independent reusable bits. Think about this in isolations. When you assign someone to build components, he will only need to focus on that component without having to thinking about other, right? In most of the cases, you can see component as a function in JavaScript. So I make a note here, React component is like a JS function. Okay? It's like JS function. They can also have input, and the input is called properties, right? They can also have steps. So function or components will have three things: UIs, properties, and steps. So properties is similar to input, right, for the functions. Step is like local variable. Okay. The only difference between component and a function is the UI. Okay, JS function does not have UI. Is that correct? But component does. All right. There will be three types of components, right? The first one is functional component. Functional component, you define a function and you return a JSX. Then you got a component. All right. But you also have something called class components. Okay. Component will have two types. I make a note here. Component will have two types: function and class. So now I ask you a question. What is the difference between functional component and class component? So this is the functional component. You declare a function, and with a return, you will return a JSX or UI. And with class component, you also return, right, a UI. But what is the difference? So anyone know? What is the difference between functional component and class component? function component is, yeah, I think most of you are correct. So you can see here, right? Both types of component are equivalent. However, class have some additional features. If you look at the class, you can see, right? You can see that you have, stats, right? You can have additional methods. But in the functional components, you don't really have it, right? So I recommend that we use class components because it offers more. Right? It offers more information. Alright, so composing components. You can have components that include smaller components. And in this smaller components, it can also include other components. So you can have a hierarchy of components. Right? So this is very useful feature because it will help us to create a more complex components based on simple and separate components. So you can see, right? It's like a component is like a building block where we can use it to do whatever types of HTML, right? Application. In the past, when we don't use React hook, we have to really think a lot about the life cycle of the component. So you think of a component like a baby. Baby will need to be born, need to grow up, need to go to school, need to mature, get sick, old, and die. Right? That's the life cycle. So component will have different steps or different how could I say this, different time, right? For example, when you create initialize components, so what will need to be done when you really show the component, right, on the website? This is called mounting. And whenever you want to make change or the properties of a component or set of a component, they will need to update, right? They will need to update the UI. And when they unmount, they will be removed from the web page.
Remember to like, share,
That's called unmounting.
See
And the
ya.
good thing is you can interfere into